Chapter 23. Rehn's Revenge. The storm raged across the battlefield, dark clouds churning as the air thickened with the stench of death and destruction. Rehn stood motionless, like a crumbling statue on the verge of collapse. His body was battered beyond recognition. The once mighty vice-commander of the Black-Armored Legion now struggled to remain upright. He had returned from the brink of death, but he was no longer whole. The black runes coiling around his left arm slithered like venomous serpents, creeping toward his chest. He could feel them consuming him. His flesh, his bones, even his very soul. Inside him, his soul beast, Thunder Leviathan, was devouring his life in the cruelest of ways. Every breath echoed in his ears, his blood boiling like molten fire. Every heartbeat was a searing agony, as if unseen hands were ripping his veins apart. His body would not last much longer, yet he still gripped his sword. Before him, the Black-Armored Legion was crumbling under the counterattack of the undead army. The elite Shadowfang unit had been nearly wiped out, their agonized cries piercing through the chaos. At the heart of it all, the Undead King stood tall, surveying the battlefield like a god gazing down upon insects. Cold, unmoved. Rehn's nails dug into his palms, blood trickling between his fingers, staining his broken armor. All of this was his fault. He had once believed that the Black-Armored Legion could control the battlefield, suppress all threats, and even harness the power of the Undead King to strengthen the Empire. He was wrong, so terribly wrong. The Undead King had never cared about their lives. They were nothing more than pawns. No, not even that. They were mere fuel, dry kindling set ablaze to ignite the flames of destruction. And he, Rehn, had been complicit in this farce. He could not accept it. The Black-Armored Legion had been his greatest pride, yet now, they were being consumed. His brothers in arms, once fearless warriors, had been twisted into mindless corpses, forced to slaughter their own comrades under the Undead King's command. This was his doing. This was the Undead King's doing. Rehn took a deep breath. It felt like fire igniting in his chest. His eyes turned cold. All emotion burned away, leaving only hatred. The Undead King must die, no matter the cost, no matter what it took. Rehn lowered his gaze to his left arm. The black runes had reached his shoulder. His consciousness was beginning to blur. Inside his mind, Thunder Leviathan growled, a sound of hunger, madness. He knew, if he continued like this, the beast would devour him completely, turning him into something neither living nor dead. He had two choices. 1, abandon everything and flee before it was too late. 2, burn away what remained of his life and fight until the very end. A faint smirk crossed his lips. Since when had he ever been the type to run? His body was already beyond saving. His soul was shattered beyond repair. Even if he survived this battle, he would be nothing more than a hollow shell. So why not burn himself to the very last ember? If he must perish, then let him turn himself into fire and drag the Undead King into the abyss with him. Slowly, he raised his sword. Lightning crackled across the blade, entwining with black flames that flickered against his expressionless face. His heartbeat steadied. The devouring force within him was suppressed to its very limit. At this moment, only one thought remained. Fight. A final decision. Above, the sky churned, black clouds roiling in an endless storm. The Undead King gazed down at Rehn, his expression unreadable. Rehn lifted his head, locking eyes with the tyrant who loomed over the battlefield. A slow, cold smile curved his lips. Undead King. His voice was low yet unshakable, laced with murderous intent. I've been waiting for you. No hesitation, no retreat. He took a step forward. Across the blood-drenched battlefield, his lone figure moved like a warrior walking the path of the dead. This battle would end only when one of them fell. Rehn's figure streaked across the blood-soaked battlefield like a bolt of black lightning. His sword burned with thunder and flame, each strike tearing through the space around the Undead King like a raging storm. The power surging through him, born from the flames of his own burning life, had pushed him to the peak of his strength. At this moment, he was stronger than ever before. At this moment, every swing of his blade carried an unrelenting thirst for death. Die! With a roar, Rehn brought his sword down in a devastating arc. Lightning crackled violently along the blade, exploding outward in a deadly surge aimed straight at the Undead King's head. The air reeked of scorched flesh. The moment the lightning struck, the surrounding undead were incinerated into nothingness, not even able to scream before being utterly obliterated. For the first time, the Undead King was forced back, if only by a single step. Rehn's cold, merciless gaze locked onto his enemy. Seizing the opportunity, his figure blurred, a dark afterimage streaking across the battlefield, before he reappeared at the Undead King's flank. His blade sliced out at an impossible angle. Boom! The sword struck the Undead King's shoulder. Thunder roared. The force of the attack tore through the king's black armor, leaving a deep, jagged gash in its wake. But Rehn was far from done. At his command, Thunder Leviathan erupted into existence, letting out a deafening snarl. Electricity coiled around the massive beast, as its crimson eyes gleamed with savage hunger. With one swipe of its claws, entire legions of undead were ripped apart, their remains flung across the battlefield. The undead army fell into chaos. The once impenetrable formation was now in complete disarray. Rehn's attacks were relentless, a storm of destruction, allowing no moment to breathe. Finally, the Undead King's gaze shifted. For the first time, he looked directly at Rehn. The Undead King's response: mortal. The Undead King slowly raised a hand. A dark rune pulsed in his palm, radiating a deathly glow. A curse that carried the weight of the underworld itself. Do you dare defy the divine? His voice was laced with mockery, his eyes cold with absolute contempt. Rehn's relentless assault, while fierce, was nothing more than a desperate insect struggling against fate. With the faintest flick of his wrist, the dark rune exploded into a blinding black light, surging toward Rehn like a tidal wave. Boom! The moment Rehn's sword clashed with the black light, he was violently repelled. An unseen force struck him like a colossal hammer, hurling him through the air before he crashed into the earth. Blood burst into the air like crimson mist. Before he could even rise, chains. From the void, black chains shot forth, snaring his arms, legs, and throat in an instant. They pulled tight, shackling him to the ground like a prisoner before execution. Rehn clenched his teeth, muscles straining as he struggled against his bindings. But the chains weren't just physical. They were draining him. His strength bled away, his body growing weaker by the second. The Undead King approached at a leisurely pace, gazing down at Rehn like a judge passing a death sentence. Pathetic mortal. His voice was calm, a whisper of inevitability. Your struggle ends here. Rehn! Alya's voice pierced the battlefield as she watched him fall. Blood spilled from his lips, his body shackled, his life slipping away. Alya's chest tightened, her breath coming in sharp gasps, her hands clenched into fists, her nails dug into her palms. She didn't even notice the pain. What should she do? She had to save him, but at the same time, her soul beast, Nether Phantom Dragon, was still being suppressed by the Undead King's presence, unable to move freely. The Undead King's focus was on Rehn. This was her only chance. If she struck now, she might land a critical hit on the Undead King while his guard was lowered. Her mind screamed, save Rehn? Or attack the Undead King? If she chose to save Rehn, she would have to destroy the chains binding him. But if she did, she would lose her only opportunity to strike. If she chose to attack the Undead King, she could cripple him. But Rehn would almost certainly die before her eyes. What should she do? Her eyes locked onto Rehn. even as blood poured from his wounds, even as death loomed over him. He still struggled. His spirit did not waver. His eyes still burned with defiance. Alya drew a deep breath. Her gaze hardened. Resolute, unwavering. She had made her decision. No matter what, she would not let Rehn die here. The dark energy inside her surged. The nether phantom dragon's eyes flashed open. A black inferno ignited in her palm. Slowly, she lifted her head, her sharp, unwavering gaze locking onto the Undead King. "I won't let you win." At that moment, the tides of battle began to shift. Rehn's body trembled violently. The black chains wrapped around his limbs and chest like venomous serpents, their cursed flames seeping into his flesh, burning away his very life. Yet, his eyes held no fear. Only a relentless battle spirit and unyielding defiance burned within them. He would not die here. His vengeance was not yet complete. Thunder Leviathan let out a low, earth-shaking growl. Its entire form was already consumed by thunder and flame, its massive body twisting in agony under the Undead King's overwhelming pressure. Yet it struggled madly, desperate to break free. "Thunder Leviathan!" Rehn roared. Blood dripped from the corner of his lips. His left arm was almost completely numb, black cracks spreading across his skin as the Undead King's curse devoured his life force. But his right hand still gripped his sword with unyielding force. His veins bulged, knuckles whitening. He could still fight. He would not fall. "Even if it costs me my life, I will make you pay." With the last ounce of his strength, Rehn unleashed a devastating surge of thunder from his body. Blinding lightning shattered the sky. Thunder Leviathan, sensing its master's will, let out a thunderous roar that shook the heavens. Boom! Thunder Leviathan's entire form ignited, transforming into a massive sword of blazing thunder and fire, a divine weapon of annihilation that pierced the heavens and the earth. Rehn grasped the thunder flame blade in his hands. With an earth-shattering roar, he rushed toward the Undead King. His speed broke through all limits, his figure becoming a streak of light that tore through the darkness. A single, devastating strike aimed straight for the Undead King's core. This blade would destroy everything. The Undead King's pupils contracted slightly. For the first time, his once calm and indifferent expression wavered. He had never expected a mere mortal to unleash such a terrifying attack under these circumstances. Shag! The thunder flame blade pierced straight through the Undead King's chest. Brilliant light engulfed the battlefield. Thunder raged within the Undead King's body, rampaging like a storm, devouring his dark energy. His form trembled, the black armor covering his body fractured. A deep, jagged crack split across his chest. From the wound, black blood slowly seeped out. The battlefield fell silent. The undead legions, as if sensing an unprecedented threat, froze in place. For the first time, they witnessed their king, wounded. Rehn's body trembled as well. His power was completely spent, yet his icy gaze remained as sharp as a blade. Ridiculous. The Undead King glanced down at his wound. A smirk curled at the edge of his lips, mocking, indifferent, as if Rehn's most powerful strike was nothing more than a futile struggle. He slowly raised his hand. From his palm, black flames surged, an abyssal fire that devoured souls. Without hesitation, he pressed it against Rehn's chest. Boom! Black flames erupted, engulfing Rehn instantly. The scorching inferno tore through his soul and body alike. His figure was sent flying, crashing down like a broken kite, slamming into the battlefield with a sickening impact. Blood splattered across the ground. His breathing grew faint, his life force rapidly fading. Rehn! Alya's scream tore through the air. Her pupils contracted violently, her chest heaving, as an unstoppable storm of fury surged within her. Her body trembled uncontrollably. Rage, sorrow, madness. All these emotions merged into one, a wrath powerful enough to shake heaven and earth. The Undead King slowly turned his gaze toward her, his expression laced with amusement. "Your turn." Yet, the moment his words fell, the sky darkened. An immense pressure swept across the battlefield. Nether Phantom Dragon. Suddenly, it broke free from the Undead King's suppression. It threw back its head and roared, its cry shaking the heavens. Black lightning surged like an unrelenting storm, covering the entire battlefield. Alya's pupils flashed into a deep, eerie blue. Dark runes coiled across her arms like living shadows. The bloodline of the undead had awakened. Her power surged past its limits. A tsunami of necrotic energy erupted from her form. The battlefield was instantly engulfed. Black lightning raged across the battlefield, the furious roar of the Nether Death Dragon tearing through the sky. The wails and howls of the undead intertwined, forming a symphony of the apocalypse. The air reeked of scorching heat. Shattered armor and weapons lay scattered, and the pale earth was drenched in blood. At the center of the battlefield, Rehn's body lay motionless. His black armor was in tatters, and the scorched imprint of the Undead King's black flames remained on his chest. His breathing was faint, barely perceptible, each breath accompanied by excruciating pain, as if his very soul was being slowly torn apart. Yet, he was still alive. His consciousness wavered in the abyss of darkness, adrift in an endless void. But the unwilling rage within him clung to his heart, refusing to let him sink completely. He was not willing. He could not die like this. However, the brutal reality forced him to acknowledge that his body could no longer fight. The Undead King's power far exceeded his imagination. Even after exhausting all his strength, though he had managed to tear through the Undead King's defenses, he had failed to truly shake that entity. He had lost. As his mind slowly resurfaced, he sensed a familiar presence approaching. Forcing his eyes open slightly, his blurred vision caught sight of Alya's anxious figure. She knelt beside him, her face pale, fury burning in her eyes. Her trembling hands hesitated to touch him, afraid that a single touch might shatter the last remnants of his life. Rehn mustered the last of his strength, the corner of his lips barely lifting, his voice so faint it was nearly swallowed by the wind. "Don't let the Undead King win." His voice was weak, as fragile as a dying ember, yet it carried an unyielding determination. Alya's pupils contracted sharply, her nails digging deep into her palm, drawing blood that dripped through her fingers. Her heart quivered violently, as if clenched by an invisible hand, a suffocating pain consuming her entire being. She could not accept this. She could not accept Rehn dying like this. A destructive light flickered in her eyes. The ghostly blue energy of necromancy surged wildly within her, her aura swelling to an unprecedented level. "I will never let anyone sacrifice themselves for me again." Her voice was low, but it carried an unshakable resolve. Sensing its master's fury, the Nether Death Dragon let out a deafening roar. Its massive body radiated terrifying black lightning, sending waves of fear rippling through the undead army. Alya slowly raised her hand. Black flames ignited in her palm, flowing like a liquid abyss, distorting the space around her. The power of necromancy flooded into her body, the Nether Death Dragon's dark fire cascading down her arm, condensing into a pitch-black spear of death. The spear gleamed with an eerie light, as if it had condensed the essence of death from the entire world. From afar, the Undead King watched with cold, detached eyes. A faint smirk curled at the corner of his lips, a trace of amusement flickering across his face. "Oh? You wish to challenge me?" His voice was calm and leisurely, as if everything before him was nothing more than a tedious spectacle. Alya did not respond. Her response was the merciless throw of the black flame spear. Boom! The black spear tore through space, shattering the very fabric of reality. Wherever it passed, the world crumbled, the remains of the undead consumed in an instant. The dark flames reflected in the eyes of all who beheld it. Like the judgment of death itself, hurtling straight for the Undead King's heart. The Undead King's gaze lifted slightly, a cold glint flashing in his eerie pupils. Slowly, he raised a hand, black runes swirling at his fingertips. The space around him twisted violently, as if the entire world was bowing to his will. The battle was about to erupt,